Please, just loan me $5. That's all I need. I just needed to get through till Monday. I know you have it. You did it last time. Please. This is the last time that I'm gonna ask.
Are you enabling an alcoholic? How do you know? Are you enabling an addict? That's the last thing we want to do. That's the last thing we want to be responsible for. So how do we know if we're doing it? Is it right? Is it wrong? That is the hardest question of all. Today I'm going to talk to you about enabling, and by the end of this video, you are going to understand if you're enabling an addict or an alcoholic in your family or who's close to you. For the longest period of almost 20 years, my wife was my largest enabler. Not by choice and not because she thought it was a good idea, but because she loved me, believe it or not. The average enabler, or the person who enables the most, generally is the one who loves the addict or alcoholic the most. I'm Wayne and I'm an alcoholic. I am not here to preach to you. I'm not here to suggest to you what you should do right, what you should do wrong, to tell you to stop what you're doing. I'm just going to highlight what can happen if somebody is enabled. Not only did I flip a car a couple times doing about 120 miles an hour based off of enabling, I stole money indirectly from people because I knew how to manipulate them enough to where they would give it to me. Thus, they enabled me. And I also took advantage of people who worked for me in a position to where they felt like they were doing me a favor, but they enabled me. And I also manipulated a counselor to believing me to the point where certain things were kind of casted aside, and that also enabled me. So how do you know if you're enabling somebody? Well, me, the alcoholic, I was very successful at borrowing money. And any catty alcoholic or addict is going to find ways to get what they want. They're going to find ways to get what they need. The alcohol, the drugs, whatever it is. How my wife was an enabler was she knew that my drinking was completely out of control. Excuse my enunciation. She knew that it was completely out of control. I would say things to her that would make her feel bad so that she would allow me to drink more. If this sounds familiar to you, then you either have enabled somebody or you have been a bystander to that. We don't set out, the alcoholic and addict, to intentionally sabotage our families. Now, granted, we are self-destructive people. Me speaking for me. I don't know about you and I don't know about your situation. But this is just from one sober to another, is that I would make my wife feel bad, and I'd make her feel bad by saying, "What? You don't love me enough to give me $20? Yeah, I always had to leave on the weekend. That's why I say that. And she would say, "Well, I'm not sure if you're going to drink again." And of course I would come back with, "Oh, you think I'm going to go and drink again? So you don't trust me anymore. You don't trust me at all." And then she would give me the $20 feeling bad for me, like I had, that I felt that she didn't trust me. And so she would give me the $20. And what did I do with it? I would immediately, before I even got on the highway to go home, get a rack of beer. Immediately. So that I knew I had it when I got to the other end. Those are the types of enabling that are very hard to break. And my friend Lewis, he actually put this idea in my head because in his situation, or not his situation, but he had a question regarding his grandfather, and that they would drive him to go get his alcohol. That is in itself enabling as well. Now, these are hard things to determine as a family member and a loved one, because we want our opposites to be happy, and we want that to be reciprocated. So they would drive him to go get his alcohol, and I did that for my father too. But back to that, and his question was, are we enabling him? Are we enabling him as an alcoholic to get worse? And my answer to him was, in short, absolutely. Now, it's not something that we think originally, because nobody is a drop-dead drunk overnight. It's a chronic disease, and it builds and builds and builds. So it may start out early and casual as just a favor. You're driving somebody to the store, they're an elder, or they're your husband, or they're your wife, or even son or daughter. And maybe a part of you, and this is where it occurs to me, would say, well, they deserve it. They worked hard, or they're an elder. You know, they lived a long time. Why can't they just have a drink? Or why can't they, do whatever? And that's how it was for my father, but we knew, my siblings and I, that my dad was a drop-ass drunk. We knew this. And to get him to shut up and to get him to just stop whining about it, we would take him to the liquor store. Now, he probably doesn't even remember that. That's the worst part about it, is that we enabled his behavior even further. We didn't set a consequence for him to have. If you drink, then this will happen. If you don't stop, then we have to go. This is where enabling can be stopped in its tracks. By saying a consequence to the action. Now, that's not to say that everybody is so far gone that you have to leave them. But I will say, in my case, as an alcoholic, I was so far to the point that, my wife did say, if you don't stop drinking, we are going to leave. She was no longer going to enable my behavior. She was no longer going to bend to my whining, or to bend to my, damage to her feelings and self-esteem in order to get what I wanted. It's a hard concept, am I hurting this person or am I loving this person? Really, you have to put it into your own situation, but for an alcoholic and an addict, there really is no deviation. If you are indeed an alcoholic out there, and you are taking advantage of your loved one, and they are doing what you want them to do because you know the art of manipulation, they are enabling you to complete your behavior. I'm not here to lecture, I'm just here to share my experience, strength, and hope. And that topic was brought to me. And, I think it's a serious thing. And it's really ignorant and foolish to play with people's emotions and their hearts to get what we want. It's so selfish as an alcoholic or an addict to peck and beat down the ones you love. But that's the way it goes, because we as alcoholics and addicts, we know that. We know the strengths and weaknesses of the people around us, and we know how to exploit that to get what we want. I mean, we see it every day. Now, the person in the street begging for $5 could indeed just be homeless and trying to fill their stomach. However, if you know that every time you give that person $5 and their first stop is to the next corner store, and you watch them go in and they come back out with a brown bag, and that's what they're doing, are you going to keep giving them your $5? Chances are probably not. And that's not to say you're a bad person, but that is going back down the drain, so to speak, because they're going to drink it and they're going to do more damage to themselves. It's very, very hard to watch an alcoholic or an addict go through their disease. And it's very hard not to say, I just don't want them to be sick. You know, I don't want them vomiting all night long because they're going into withdrawals, or, you know, I don't want them going through cold sweats and pure physical agony because they didn't get their fix. These are things that loved ones go through for the most part. When you talk about professionals and doctors and, you know, counselors and things like that, I had done such a well job faking my sobriety back in the day that I had a counselor convinced that I was great, I was good to go for the most part, so I thought, but she was smarter than me and she was awesome. I had taken her through a roller coaster many times, telling her I'm okay. I would preach to the group. I would tell them what they needed to do and how to fix their lives. And she caught on that I was always projecting outward. I was never doing self-examination and looking inward and using I statements. I was saying they and you should. When she caught on to that, she started reading through certain paperwork of blood tests and things like that. And she realized that I was kind of deficient on a certain thing, and she called me on my bullshit. In my opinion, that's what you have to do with your alcoholic or your addict in your life. Or if you're the alcoholic or addict, and perhaps you should maybe look inward also. Call yourself on your bullshit and see how it goes. If you're the loved one or the person watching this happen, call them out on their bullshit. Say, look, it's enough. It's gotta stop. And this is what's going to happen if you don't. Now, I'm not telling you to go out and do that, but I am saying call them on their bullshit. Sometimes that's what we need to wake up. Enabling is, I really can't stress how much enough it is the loved one to the person with the disease who enables the most. Now, there are other influences, but that is the most occurrence and the most exploited by the alcoholic or addict in their disease. Because, like I said, we know how to play on the heartstrings, and we know how to play that love to the point where the love becomes abuse. And that's really what it is. I mean, let's call it what it is, people. And if you have any interesting comments to drop below, I would love to hear it. And I bet somebody else out there who is dealing with the question of if they're enabling or not, they need to hear it as well. And I think it's our job as people in recovery to be able to point these things out as the person who committed those acts, because we know what it looks like on this side, to the people who are out there who might be in that same situation. You feel me? That is my little thoughts on enabling, and I got wrapped around the axle a little bit, and I'm sure I didn't say everything I wanted to say, but I hope I got the point across. This is One Sober to Another, and guess what, folks? If you have any issues with alcoholism or addiction, I have links below and recovery hotlines, as well as the Alcoholics Anonymous .org website that has awesome resources on it, and also 12 steps and 12 traditions, how to get your hand on your copy. And Kevin Barheit, Kevin Barheit. He's an awesome dude. He has very unique ways and perspectives on sobriety. Check him out. I have his link below, as well as if you feel like checking out some cool folks, Annie Grace, No More One Daff, AK Free Your Ghost, Sober Journey, Sober James. There are so many out there, and what makes that community so great is we're all on YouTube, and we are full resources for you. If you haven't taken the chance to subscribe, hit that notification bell and that subscribe button so you can stay in the know of One Sober to Another. I'm Wayne, and I'm an alcoholic, and guess what, folks? It's time to sign off, and I will see you in the next one. Have a good night.